All right, take two. So the new computer I used for this did an update, and it decided, hey, we've done the update. Start Microsoft Edge. And I'm like, no. So what it did was while I'm doing a video where I'm reviewing this episode, everything froze, and I'm pretty sure it's because it added Microsoft Edge. It's like when Windows adds something, you go, hey, you need to use this, and you go, I don't really want to use it. And they go, yeah, we're just going to freeze up other things on your computer until you use it. So that's what we're going to do. Aren't you glad we did that? Anyway, so I'm going to talk to you guys about the second episode of season 2 of The Mandalorian. It's called The Passenger. And if you haven't watched it, go watch it. It's great. It's fantastic. It's kind of a first part of a two-parter, it feels, and yet the way that this show works, each episode does go into the next. So we'll see whether or not this gets resolved next week or if this is just the storyline that's going to take us through the rest of the season. So we we catch up with the Mandalorian. He's got the Boba Fett armor, of course, and they try to rob him for it, and he ends up, off, and all the guys are trying to rob him for it, and even try to steal the kid, and that's not going to happen. So he comes back with the child, and he finds his way off the planet with a passenger, with somebody who's going to help him, as long in exchange for him helping her get her eggs fertilized and her race to continue, her species to continue, her family line to continue. We're going to look at it. So as soon as we see her and she's got this container full of liquid that has the eggs in them, and I'm not going to say it's water. It's probably not water. It's probably some kind of a nutrient-rich solution to keep the eggs fresh. And the child, who is known by everybody as Baby Yoda, his eyes go like huge, like saucers, and he chases her into the ship. So if you look in the background, it's easy to kind of miss it too. You look in the background, you'll see her walking her way into the ship, and the child is just chasing her, just motoring. So with with that happening, and then Mando gets on the ship, the first thought I had was, okay, please don't eat the eggs. Don't make me feel bad for eggs. Come on, come on. Don't make me feel bad. And of course, sure enough, the child is eating the eggs. And I don't know how many he ate. When the Mandalorian asks him, he just pops another one in. And it is a toddler thing where you eat everything that you can find. Everything is food. That is a toddler way. And yet keep in mind the child's supposed to be about 50 years of age. So it's weird. There's no way it's not weird, right? But the only thing that throws me off in this, and I hope at some point they explain it, is last year in season 1, the child known as Baby Yoda, wherever you want to call him, he used force powers to save the life of Djarin, the Mandalorian who has saved him, right? In this episode, I really thought he was going to use his force powers again. I really thought that was going to happen. And I'm really surprised that it didn't, because he was clearly in threat of possibly dying, and yet he panicked and he squealed like a small child would, but he didn't use his force powers. I kept waiting for it, especially as so again he's eating everything that's not locked down because he's an infant, and so he wanders off on his own after she wandered off on her own. So the frog creature, whatever you want to call her, she wanders off on her own to find a warm bath for her eggs, and she's not thinking this through clearly, but she found a hot spring of some sort, and so Mando goes to get her, and the child let him know that she had left, kind of alerted him, and then wanders off and finds these eggs and decides to eat whatever's in it because that's what you do. Um, not what I would do. I don't find things laying around and go, I'm going to eat whatever's in there. I don't do that. That's not a way that if you want to live and get through life and live to a ripe old age, you don't just, I've found this, I'm going to eat whatever's in there. That's a way to die, and he almost does. So there's this spider thing that's in there. What was interesting to me was that as soon as he ate one, the mother knew what had happened, goes crazy, and all of the other babies hatched, which made me wonder. So was that the only egg that wasn't ready? Was it kind of ready, but the Yoda creature killed it, or what? Like, one of those things I thought that's kind of weird, but it was really well done. The CGI was great for it with all these spiders, and it reminded me of, and you guys can let me know in the comment section below if it reminded you of this too. It reminded me of Cloverfield with all of the bugs that were falling off the alien thing that were down in the subway. And if you haven't seen Cloverfield, it's a good movie. Some goofy parts, but good movie overall. And the giant mother reminded me of Shelob from Lord of the Rings, the big spider that eventually gets Frodo, and then of course they have to free Frodo and all that. But that's what it reminded me of, and it sort of felt like that with the way it was framed and everything. And it was terrifying. It really genuinely was, and it made me wonder how do you survive this? How do you make it? And then there were a few things like there was Mando using the flamethrower on his own ship. That would have to damage something, right? But again, they end up being saved by, and I want to call them rebels, but they're not. They're New Republic fighters, and they had been there at the start of the episode, and that's why Mando's running away because they are you Empire? What are you? Are you leftover Imperial? And he's like, I don't know, I can't make this thing work. And they're like, yeah, you can. No, I can't find it. Yeah, you can. So he just takes off. And so they have this big, nice chase, and he ends up in this cave, and they saved the day. They did. Now, what I liked about it was that we saw this big chase, and they never opened fire. At no point did the New Republic troops open fire when they would have been justified in doing so. And so we end up with this big chase and this big battle that doesn't involve a shot. This show is made properly. This is how sci-fi really should be, so that when somebody opens fire, it feels like it's important. It feels like it matters. It's not just shooting for the sake of shooting, right? So they saved him at the end. They realized that he was wanted. They knew what he was wanted for, but they decided, you know what? You seem like a decent enough guy, because he had basically risked his own life to save others. And they're like, you know what? You did some really good things here. You did some really good things here. We're going to let you go. But if you're back in our sector of space again, we'll have to arrest you. And I thought that was really well played out. And again, one thing this show does very well is it doesn't necessarily portray just these are the big evils and these are the really good guys. It's not that clear cut. I think it's what George Lucas had in mind when he did the prequels, when it was there's heroes on both sides. Remember that weird scrawl at the start of part three, Revenge of the Sith, was there's heroes on both sides, and you're going, no, there isn't. There's the Empire, and there's not the Empire. The Empire's not heroes. But in this one, I think they've shown that you could have that, where you could have the heroic on either side of the argument. It'll be interesting to see next week as they get to the planet. I would imagine that the frog alien is going to get her eggs fertilized or not, whatever's going to happen to her. At certain points in the episode, I thought maybe she was going to end up dying and then leave Mando kind of stuck in a lurch. But at that point, you have to wonder: is Ahsoka Tano coming in next week? Will Boba Fett be chasing him down? Are we going to get some other Clone Wars throwback reference out of the next episode? I think it could be fascinating. Are we going to go into a former Imperial stranglehold where there are still stormtroopers around? It's going to be really interesting. And I think one thing this show does very well is that each episode, it's fast paced and everything kind of comes at you at once, and then all of a sudden it's done, and you're going, okay, so that's done. Then what next? And it shows how well written it is. It shows how well plotted and paced out it is. And I'm excited for next week. I'm excited every week for what's going to happen. And I think they've done a good job in making the child act like a child without making it goofy and over the top. Because Star Wars has struggled with that in the past, where when something comedic happens, you're like, oh, that's really corny or really cheesy or just really badly written. And so it takes you out of the moment, or you go, oh, they're trying so hard to force a laugh here and it just doesn't work. And in this series, they really haven't. It comes across as a Western gunslinger, and it has been that way the whole way through. This episode was Definitely restricted to the three characters that we saw, including the child, and just those two pilots that are there at the beginning to start the whole thing, and then at the end to fix what Mando got himself into. But um, great episode, really, really enjoyed it, and I'd be interested to know what you guys thought as well. Anxious for this coming episode as well. I think that this is just it's building every week. I think it's a show that could go on for many years, and there's so many different directions you can go because Star Wars is a huge universe. My biggest complaint with the sequel trilogy was they didn't really look into how vast this universe could be and all these wonderful avenues you could travel down, and they just kind of went down a familiar path just because that's where they knew they could make money. So hopefully we get more unfamiliar paths with some callbacks in there, right? You have your callbacks in each episode, but it still feels like something brand new and something different, and I really appreciate something different. So let me know what you guys thought in the comments section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.